Welcome back. Today I'm going to take a look at my last few daily games on chess.com. After a long series of mostly losses, my daily rating's now in the 1200s, and I've been working to build it back up. The good news is I won these 3 games. Hopefully there are still points in them where I can learn something. And today I'm going to try to get some help from my son.
Hi, I'm Benjamin.
When we get to any points where I made a mistake, he's going to tell us what he would have played in those positions, and we'll see if it was the same as mine, or the same as what the engine said, or something else entirely. In the first of the 3 games that we're going to take a look at, I was running the game review in the background while I was doing my intro, and it says I had 0 mistakes, 0 blunders, 0 misses. So I did really well in this one, played 90%. There might not be anything for me to learn from in this game, but we will take a look. I played like a 1900, my opponent played like a 1700. They only made 1 mistake. I guess let's go to the point of their 1 mistake and see if we can learn from my opponent's mistake. Wow, it says I was already ahead here before my opponent made the mistake. I was already at -1. Well, I'm going to flip the board to the other side here, seeing it from my opponent's perspective. I'm trying to figure out what I would have played here. Let's see. They have their bishop lined up here, and that's me playing with the black pieces. I'm looking at it from my opponent's perspective. I guess I would probably put this bishop here, but that's what it said they played, isn't it? Yeah, okay. I was thinking I would probably try to add an extra layer of defense to the knight. I don't know. Or maybe just get the knight out of there, bring the knight back. Wow, it looks like I would have made the same mistake that my opponent made. I'm going to flip it back to my perspective here. They played bishop to e2, apparently looking at this and hoping to castle, but that was a mistake. They should have played c3. That's because my queen is aiming at that pawn. Okay. Well, then I don't blame them. How did they go behind here? They had 2 inaccuracies. Maybe let's take a look at those 2 spots here. Okay, here we're closer to even. The engine says they should have brought this knight out here or played g3, probably with the intent to fianchetto. Yes, to fianchetto and then castle. Okay. Well, then I feel pretty good about this French defense, which is what I've been playing recently. My opponent pushed that forward, and thankfully I have done enough analyses to know that when they do that, I'm supposed to play c5. So I did play c5 here, and they should have played c3 immediately. But as we saw, they still hadn't played c3. But that is interesting that I'm already ahead on move 2. You know, just by a little bit. Still very close to even. But yeah, at this point, d4 is what most people, including masters, play here, I think. But also both knights coming out is fine as well. But this opponent pushed forward and I played c5. So already black has a very slight advantage. Now they can play c3, and building up to the d4 push, or get this knight out. But they played d3 instead, putting me a little further ahead. Oh, and I played the best move. Okay. Well, that's attacking an undefended pawn, plus now that c-pawn has moved, that's a good place for the knight. So I feel pretty good about this opening then. They played one of their better moves. d6 is my best move here. Okay, see, I wondered about that because I don't know that I've been to this exact position before, because I don't, see the e5 push very often on move 2. I didn't know if I should try to throw this past that e-pawn or just go up 1. But the engine definitely would have played just up 1, and it is their best move to take, and not necessarily my best move to take back. The engine thinks e5 here, but taking back that pawn is okay as well. Okay, they should be getting the other knight out or getting ready to fianchetto the bishop, but they played a3. Oh, the game review thought that was their best move. Okay, so not that bad then. And the engine thinks I should get this knight out this way. Okay, I guess. I didn't know why not to put it on f6 because that e-pawn's gone. So I don't have to worry about a pawn attacking it. And then they played their first inaccuracy, and this is where we got to this position originally. They should have prepared to fianchetto or gotten the other knight out to d2, but here's where they played bishop to g5. Is that where it switches to the Steinitz attack? No, the Steinitz attack must have been pushing that e5 pawn. Okay, but that's not great. Oh, and the engine just would have played h6 here. I so often forget that. I don't know why. I guess it's because I'm not really worried about this yet, so I don't feel the need to play h6. I just decided I could play b6 here to get this bishop over this way, and also, to protect that pawn in case I need to move my dark squared bishop. But b6 is my second best move. They played their best move, and now the engine isn't sure whether I should drop this bishop back to e7 or put this one on b7. I chose b7 because I had just moved that pawn, and again, I wasn't worried about that knight. So when I played here, again, my opponent should have played g3, preparing to fianchetto this bishop, or d4 to try to break open the center, but instead they do what a lot of people at my level do, which is try to immediately jump in with something and try to attack. So they jumped in with this knight here to e4. I was pointed at the wrong square, but I do see this a lot. Apparently my level isn't high enough to get past, a lot of people who play this way, and I don't know how high that goes up. I did wonder about it because, it's attacking the bishop. Also, it's put a second attacker on the knight here. But the problem to me is that they still haven't developed. They still haven't gotten their king to safety, and it looks like they're ready to break this open. Well, now it seemed like a good idea to bring this bishop back to defend that knight because they're attacking the bishop, so I can save the bishop this way, and they're attacking the knight, and I can protect the knight with that same move. So that made sense to me. And now I'm up more than -1 because of this unnecessary attempt to pen the knight, and then this further unnecessary attempt to attack the knight that I can easily defend. Stockfish would bring this bishop back at this point, or bring the knight back. Either one of those back to d2. But my opponent, I guess, having already, expended the effort to put this up here, decided to just go ahead and trade, so they did that. And of course I took, and then they thought, let's trade off the bishops too, so we did that. And that's where we, opened up here before their first mistake. And it's because I'm pointed at this pawn that they should play c3 or rook to b1. All right, well, that makes sense. Probably if I had looked at it from their perspective a little longer, I would have seen that. Or maybe I would have seen it from this perspective if I hadn't flipped the board. But because they did that, that gives up that b pawn, and it is my best move to take it. Their best move to castle. My best move to castle here or play rook to c... Wait, why c8? I'm going to focus on this because I so often put rooks on the incorrect files. If I was going to move this a rook at all, I would have put it on this semi-open file, especially lined up with their queen. I do get castling here. That makes sense. But here I played one of my only inaccuracies, and that was knight to d4. Obviously, if they took back, I would have, an escape route with my queen here. But if they didn't take, I'm aiming at their bishop, and then I would be the only one with the bishop left, and it would be pointed at that knight. So I guess what I was thinking here is... Actually, I probably thought that they would come after my queen, and then I would just slide up one. Or I don't know, maybe I would have taken this pawn. But yeah, that's an inaccuracy, and I can see why. I think I should have castled here. They are supposed to take it, and I'm supposed to take back with my queen. That's one of their better moves, and it is my best move to take it, and their best move to take back with the queen. They're aimed at the rook, so this kind of, encourages me strongly to castle because that rook's not defended. The engine says moving it over would be just as good, but I went ahead and castled, so the rook's defended. And I'm only up one pawn, but that's enough here, apparently. And according to this list, my opponent only made 2 more inaccuracies, and I was able to win this game. So when they brought that over, that was their next inaccuracy. I think the reason for that is that this rook was defending this pawn, but now they're not. I'm glad I found this, but it looked like I could, attack 2 pawns at once, and they can't defend both of them. So that seemed okay to me. They pushed that pawn. I was able to get the other one. And of course, now if they try to challenge, my queen, I can get both pawns. They went to protect that pawn, which is probably good. And I need to get my queen out of there because it looks like, I might be starting to get trapped here in just a second. So I went ahead and gave myself an escape route. I thought I could go here and trade queens, plus keep that pawn from advancing. But now it's minus 2.75. By the time of my opponent's next inaccuracy, which is here, I'm already up, minus 4, it says. They should have played king to e3, but they played there, getting in front of that pawn. Well, that pawn's currently defended, so it's not like they're going to take it. And of course, I'm just going to bring my king up here, which is what I did. They move a pawn, I move my king, and now it's minus 5.5. And just a few moves later, it's minus 6.5, and they resign. I mean, I didn't play the best move on every play of that game, but I think I did a really good job. Let's go on to the next one, and I think that's the one that my son can help us with. I don't have a bunch of game reviews left anymore. I just have the one per day. So in this one, I had to rely on the analysis board. But this is the ending position and where my opponent resigned. I have a mating sequence, Stockfish says. I was playing with the white pieces. It looks like I'm going to, pretty easily be able to get that pawn or not even worry about it and just advance this one. It does look like I'm just going to play f5, f6, and f7. That was my plan. The reason that I moved my king here was in case they wanted to go this way. But I guess they couldn't have. My king was already here, so I probably didn't need to play that. I'm guessing that if we back up here, yep, I should have just played f5. Okay, so I wasted a move by putting the king here. My bishop and king are already guarding those squares. Their king can't go that way. But regardless, my opponent's king is just going to be stuck going to one of these 2 squares right now, and I'm just going to march this pawn, and there's not anything they can do about it. But I'm sure everything didn't go well in this game, so I'm going to click through until the eval bar jumps, and at the points where I made a mistake, I'll let my son chime in and say what he should have played. I started with the English, and we got a symmetrical variation. Now here's the point of my opponent's first mistake. They pushed this pawn here. I'm not sure what they should have done, but the engine says I should just push past instead of taking here, and that's what I did. The idea was that, if they take, which I assumed that they would, my pawn's defended here, my knight's, aiming at that square up there, everything back here is pretty well protected. So I pushed past, they took, and I took. Interestingly here, the engine says they should castle or put the queen up. I thought they should move the knight at this point. Why isn't it their best move to, they can't move the knight because of the rook? I understand that now. Well, they went to protect the knight with the bishop. Well, of course, I'm just going to take it because I get a knight for a pawn. I honestly thought they were going to take back with the pawn here, but they took back with the bishop, so I trade here, and then we've got this situation, and I'm up a piece for a pawn, all because of the order of their pawn moves over here, which allowed me to, to threaten the knight and to keep it from moving because it was pinned to the rook. So very nice. Let's go on to the point of my first mistake. Surely I had one. Okay, right here after move 19, when my opponent played this, on my next move, the eval bar dropped about a point. I was still ahead, but I didn't play my best move. Let's see what my son would have played here.
What I would do in this position is I'd put our B rook onto D1 and then I'll do the rook trade.
All right, he says he would have played rook B to D1, which would, he hopes, force the rook trade. I don't know if that's worse than what I played, but if he did that, it looks like they could go ahead and take, and then if we took back, they could bring this other one over and it's protected and mine's not protected, so I'd have to take, and then they would put their queen there and they would be threatening something here. So I would have to worry about that. Okay. What I played was knight to F4, and of course I was aiming in here, at E6, which would have been a triple fork. It was a pretty transparent attempt, but I thought, what, if they take it, I'm going to take back, and I've got this pawn structure. And they don't have a light squared bishop, so I wouldn't be worried about something pointing through here, except their queen, but it's going to be a little while before their queen can point through there, right? Because of these pawns. But anyway, that's what I played. My son played this. Now here we're at +4, just a little over. When I played this, it drops down to, earlier it dropped down to about +3, but now it's 3.28. Okay, I'm curious as to what this would have done. His move would have been slightly better than mine, but it is, as I said, they would want to take here, he would take back, and then I was wrong about them putting this rook over here. It says they would put it on B8, guess to protect that pawn. Well, good for my son. The move he chose was very slightly better than the move that I chose, so I'm proud of him. I should have played taking here. I must have considered that during the game, but I think the reason that I wouldn't have is because then they could undouble their pawns, and they would have two connected pawns here, one of which would be a passed pawn. Would I be able to get it? Let's see. It says if I take here, they're going to take back, and then I'm going to move over and check, and they're going to block that with the pawn. Oh, I would get that one too. Nice. Okay, so if I move over here to check, now it doesn't say they would play C4, but either way, I'm going to get the B5 pawn. Okay, I get that. Why didn't I see that here? Because that's a couple of moves away. Obviously, I'm not seeing that I can check them here because my pawn's in the way. And I kind of wanted them to take this pawn, which would give them tripled pawns. But now that I think about it, those would all three be technically passed pawns if they did that. Okay. All right, I understand. I understand why this is better, because I'm not just trading pawns and undoubling their pawns. I'm going to be able to check, and then however they get out of check, I'm going to be able to pick up that pawn. Let's go to the point of my next mistake. Okay, here the eval bar is at about 4.4, and it dropped again about a full point when I played what I played. Let's see what my son would have played.
In this position, I would play rook to C3 because my rook would be protected by the bishop, and then it would take, or they would have to run away.
All right, he says he would have played rook to C3, hoping for a rook trade here because the bishop is protecting. All right, let's see how far the eval bar drops for that. About +2.5. And it says they wouldn't take it. They would play queen to D6. Oh, tripling. And then it says we would go ahead and take that pawn that we should have taken a long time ago. But I'm pretty sure if they played this, my son would have gone ahead and taken that rook. But it says we would trade pawns first, and then he would take the rook. Okay. Well, so +2.6 is what it gives his move. And my move was here. And it's +3.2 or so, 3.3. Okay, so my move was a little better this time, but still not the best move. The best move was bishop to C3, according to the engine, and it says they would take it with the rook, and then we would take back with our rook. And then they would take here, tripling their own pawns. Okay, I don't know if they would take there or not, would they? It's not sure. No, it's changed its mind. For a second, I thought it said queen to B6. But now it is saying that the b pawn capturing on c4 is their best move, taking all of this, and then we would take that rook. They would take back. But initially it said to go ahead and take it. Yeah, it's not saying that anymore. Now it's saying here. But what if they went ahead and took? Then we would take there. That would be our only move. And then their best move would be queen to a5. Oh, okay. Targeting that. Nope, I can't decide whether queen to a5 or taking this pawn. Nope, it's changed its mind again. Rook to d6. It wants to pull that rook back, and we're just up +4. Almost +5. Okay. I think I understand why that's the best move. It just looked to me like when they threw this rook down here, I thought they were about to put the queen here someplace and then triple here. So I thought if I came over this way, well, now that I think about it, that doesn't make any sense. This rook is already helping to guard this back rank. Bishop to c3. I think I perfectly understand why that's a good move. It's protected by the rook. It's challenging this rook. This rook doesn't have anywhere safe to go. That's the problem here, is that rook doesn't have anywhere safe to go. But if they went ahead and took this pawn, it says, yeah, I would go ahead and take this rook, and they would take back. And then would I take this pawn? It would be okay if I did. So my move wasn't that great, and it doesn't make sense now that I've, unevaluated it. All right, let's see if I made any more mistakes in this game. It looks like I've been ahead the whole time, even after my mistakes. Okay, the eval bar didn't jump much here, but the numbers here changed from +7.8 down to +5 when I played this with my bishop. Engine says I should have played rook to d1 is the only move that gives me that +7. Well, let's see what my son would have played here.
In this position, I'd play rook to e8, forcing them to move to g7 or f7. If they played f7, I could move the other rook to e1 to try for checkmate.
Okay. He's saying he would have checked first, and which would have forced them obviously up or, to the 7th rank here, and then he would have played rook to e8, hoping for checkmate. Now, if they had come up here and he moved over, they would have to immediately go to g7, hoping to squeeze out through this hole, I think, or I guess push one of the pawns forward. But it's not gonna be mate, is it? Because of the bishop can't get here safely, plus that pawn's in the way. I don't know. Let's see what it does to the evaluation if he plays this. It drops us down to about +4.5, and it says that g7 or f7, it really wouldn't matter. But let's say they came here. Oh, and Stockfish would drop this all the way back to e1. No, I read that wrong. Stockfish says here it would play what my son said, which is rook f to e1, and he's up +5 now. And their best move is to play rook to c1, because if you take it, they get this rook. Well, let's say that the opponent had seen that this is now pinned. Stockfish would play this rook here because the other one can't move except to capture that rook. The king would drop back 1, and then it would play bishop to b4, which is what I played before all those rook moves, to protect that rook. And if they take this one, when we move there, it's check. And it says that they would take that one. He would take back here, and that's a check. And they can't come this way because of the rook, so they have to go to f7 or g8 or g7. It says probably g8, and then we would check again. They came toward us. We could check on e7, but not f8 for some reason, and we're still way ahead. Okay, so what my son would have played here was not bad. It was just slightly worse than what I played. What I played was bishop to b4, which again, hoping to protect that rook, and also to guard f8 in case I had to move that rook, which I figured I would here in just a little bit. But when I played bishop to b4, it drops us to +5, which was a 2-point drop. So not really a blunder, doesn't give away my advantage. I'm still way ahead. And it's about the same evaluation as what my son got after the first couple of moves that he said, which was to, to check here and then to move this rook over. It was at about +5 if I'm not mistaken. But the best move there, according to the engine, was rook to d1. Now it says +8. So it was a 3-point drop. Okay, so rook to d1. Okay, well that threatens mate immediately. And their best move is again rook to c1, which pins this, but that just gives up the rook for free. That's what Stockfish would play here. I don't know what a human would play here. A human would probably play king to f8, which gives up this pawn. Or I don't know why we couldn't play bishop to b4 now, which is probably what I would have played here. But oh yeah, we get this pawn. They're gonna come over here to e2, it says. I don't know. I think a human might take my f pawn now, hoping to get me trapped over here. But it says, let's see, what if they did that? Oh, if they did that, I have mate in 1. Oh, well, never mind then. Maybe that's what a really low-rated bot would play. But yeah, they have to do something about this, and that's why they need to play this rook here so that when I check down there, they can interpose their rook this way. Rook to b1 is the next best, which is here. But it says if they played that, obviously I would just take it. So backing up, I definitely understand why rook to d1 is better than what I or my son played, but that's not that bad. Let's see if I had any other mistakes. It doesn't really look like it, and of course at this point I've got a whole extra piece. They're not going to be able to get these 3 pawns past my 4 pawns, and that pawn can't go anywhere. So when they started bringing their king, I just started bringing my king as well. I wasn't worried about the bishop, even though they came for it, because I can just drop it back, and then the bishop can protect itself with check and keep their pawn from moving. And then we get to this situation that I was talking about earlier. I think I would have played f5 here, and that's what Stockfish says too, but they chose the h pawn first for some reason, and then the g pawn. Again here, wouldn't the f pawn have been better? It says so, but I just would have pushed slightly past it, and I would have been able to pretty easily get those pawns from behind. But as it turned out, you saw the ending position of this game, which was here, and as we already discussed, I should have played f5 here. All right, well, I have enough time to look at one more game. In this game, I won by checkmate in 11 moves, which is incredibly rare for me, and I don't know that it's ever happened in a daily game where, the opponent has 3 days to make a move here. Let's just look at this one. Surely I didn't make any major mistakes in this game. If it's that short and I won, I played the English, my opponent played a normal response, and these moves are completely normal. I almost always fianchetto my bishop at this point. All of this so far is what I have had dozens, if not hundreds of opponents play since I have switched to the English. Completely normal here. Usually, once my opponent has nothing between their king and rook, they castle here. This opponent did not castle. They immediately jumped this knight in here. If they had played against this version of the English before, which is the Carls Bremen system, they would have known that my next move is going to be e3, even if they didn't play the knight in here. Even if they had castled, like most people probably would here, Stockfish wouldn't, but I'm going to play e3 here. It's my second best move. But because they didn't castle, and they just jumped in here, well, e3 makes even more sense now. And again, this is what I was talking about in that first game. It's an opponent that's trying to attack right here before they've taken their king to safety or developed the rest of their pieces. And that, I think, is a symptom of, the low rating that I'm at right now, 1250 in daily. So I did play e3. If Stockfish was given this position, it would bring this knight back, but this opponent brought the queen out. Well, that just looked like I can take this knight. Is that my best move? Okay. So I took the knight, and now, of course, I'm worried about this pawn moving at any point. It's not actually my opponent's best move. The engine would play h5 here, or knight to a6. Well, what if they had played this now? Wouldn't I have just, I would have just taken the bishop now. That's why they need to play knight to a6 first, so the bishop's protected. Wow. Hopefully I would have seen that if they had played that. But here my opponent surprised me by moving the king over. And then I realized why they had done it, to protect the bishop. So now they can play this. Well, I'm supposed to take my queen back, but I didn't. Was this a mistake? Let's see, +5 to +4.7, or plus maybe an inaccuracy at worst, but no, it's still pretty close to +5. Okay, here the engine would play h5 or queen to e7, which is what my opponent played. Well, I'm already up a full piece because I took here, so I thought it wouldn't hurt anything to trade this off. So I traded that off. We're on move 8. I'm up +5. I didn't know it at the time, but I know I'm up a full piece, so I'm doing okay. I'm also aiming at this g7 pawn, so I thought they might need to do something about that. But obviously they need to take back here first. But they didn't. Yeah, it says they need to take back. Why didn't they take back? I'm not sure, but they attacked it with this pawn. Oh, I think it's because they thought they could get this piece, or my queen, or maybe I wouldn't see that the bishop was attacking my queen. But I have learned from a very famous chess YouTuber about danger levels, and I thought I can just check right here. They capture it with the bishop. I'm going to capture with my bishop, and then I'm going to win the rook for the bishop. So I did that. They can't take my queen or my knight. It is actually their best move to take the knight, so they did, and I took back. So now I'm going to win their rook. Their best move is to attack my queen, at which point I would go back, but then I would still win the rook, right? But instead, my opponent played there, and I almost took the rook, but because it's a daily game, I looked, realized I have a protected check right here, and that's checkmate. Glad I found it. I was curious, so I looked at this opponent's profile. Their rapid rating is 500 and something, so I'm guessing this was one of their very first daily games. Now here after the game, it shows their rating is 1061, so it might have been 1200 before this game. As you probably know, many people on chess.com start at the default rating of 1200, so they would have fallen within my parameters since I'm rated 1250. So I'm, playing somebody that may not have ever played before. Hopefully they learned something from this game, and hopefully they don't get discouraged and they continue playing chess and get better. Maybe they'll play me again in a year and wipe me out. Either way, thanks for spending your time here, and thanks to my son for his input.
Bye-bye.
And I'll see you next time.